You're listening to Darling Shine, a podcast by Elodie Pullen and myself, Chloe Fisher.
Darling Shine is your survival kit to the unexpected shit life throws at you. Hello everyone and welcome back to Darling Shine. Today we have Tahina McManus with us. Tahina is an Australian model, actor, producer, writer and director. Chloe and I watched Tahina's very personal Misunderstandings of Miscarriage film that she began documenting in the midst of her third miscarriage. What we love about Tahina is her mission to connect women who have an otherwise unspoken bond in the world of baby loss. The documentary covers an array of other women's miscarriage stories alongside Tahina's. Statistics show that 1 in 4 women will miscarry, and 75% of those will feel unsupported during and after the miscarriage. So together with Tahina, we strive to move towards a world where conversations around miscarriage are as common as miscarriage themselves. So without further ado, welcome to the podcast, Tahina.
Oh, thanks so much, girls. I really appreciate it.
Yay.
We're so excited to have you.
Yeah, we're so excited. I remember when I was young, like looking up to you and your sister, and I was like, oh, they're such beautiful, amazing models. And
I actually need to jump in here, which is really funny. And I was gonna throw it in at the end. I haven't told you this, but my husband Paul, basically, I was like, yeah, we're interviewing Tahina for the podcast, and he's like, oh my God, when I was growing up, I was literally had the biggest crush on her. Like she was like the Billabong model, and I was like with Reef, and I'm like, oh, do you want to just come on the podcast then as well? He's just like, no. I was like, I'm gonna tell them that. I didn't tell you that, Elodie, but he's like, yes, she was just like. Every boy was just so obsessed with her when we were growing up.
Oh my God!
So there you go.
Because there's a couple of days, in the midst of the Sydney lockdown and being 35 now and having my third piece of cheesecake where I kind of go, there was a time.
Oh my gosh, you talk like you're old. You've still got it. 35 is so young.
I know, it's funny, isn't it? But I think it's always... as well, it's like lived experience. What you be through, it just changes you so much. And if I look back at my time as, an 18-year-old version of myself, it's just so crazy because it actually isn't that long ago, but it is. It's so long ago. It's like crazy.
That's so true. A few things happen in your life and all of a sudden you grow up like overnight, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. So everything what you used to put importance on changes. And yeah, it's been a wild ride, certainly in my life, that's for sure.
Wow, Tahina. Well, huge props on the documentary. Chloe and I watched it a few times and we loved it. I was on the verge of tears the whole time. Thank you so much for being so raw and vulnerable and just so real. Personally, I haven't been through baby loss before, but I have firsthand seen Chloe go through multiple miscarriages and the after effects emotionally and physically on her after those. And like even in the documentary you spoke about like, that fear of going to the bathroom to see what you might pull your undies down to. And I saw Chloe be like, I'm scared to go and check. Like I'm scared to go to the bathroom. And I loved how real it was just watching the documentary. I was like, holy shit, everyone needs to see this. Even if you haven't been through it. And
yeah,
also,
the first time I ever watched it, like I watched it by myself because one of the girls told me to watch it, and I think I had just gone. I was maybe a month or two out of my first miscarriage, and I sat down and I watched it by myself, and I had like obviously cried my eyes out. It was so like hit home so hard for me. And the next day, I literally made Paul sit down and watch it with me. I was like, I need you to sit down, like because men get it, but they don't. They don't get it to the core that women, like when you're going through it. And I'm like, I want you to watch this with me because it's like some of the stuff that you talk about is like, it makes so much sense when you watch it. And Paul, like even he was crying in the end. I was like, oh Jesus, it's a lot.
Well, that's the thing. It's when you're experiencing, and thank you so much for even watching it and those really nice words to say about it, because I guess when I was making it I had no idea. I do see a conversation growing, and I think, but certainly when I first started filming it, very much like what you were saying, Chloe, is that you're going through something so personal and you hide everything, and I had all these videos that I was doing, and I was like, I'm not really sure if I want to do this. Do I want to do this? What, like, I was trying to, go through the filmmaking process, but also go through what I was suffering. And that was part of the reason of making as well, like what you were saying with your partner and things like that, was just, I wanted other people to kind of understand the experience, because I felt like there was a secret club of women who had experienced loss that I was connecting with. But as soon as you sort of stepped out of that, no one else kind of knew what to say or do or understand. And the partner felt unsupported. They didn't know what, and it just got really complex. So I felt like if I could break it down, use my journey as sort of like the baseline, and then talk to all these other women and their experiences, I could probably come out with something that will help a lot of people, in which, I've had some really great feedback from women. And I mean, that's all I set out to do in the beginning.
I loved all the little bits along the way that would just definitely go missed by many people would never know. So like when clothes, like when you didn't hear a heartbeat in your last scan, you've got to go back and see that doctor. You've got to sit in those waiting rooms with those other really happily pregnant people, and you're about to go in and they're about to talk about your baby in words like, let's remove the rest of this product from your uterus or cells. And she's like, I've planned the next 20 years mentally in my head with this child. That's my baby. That's not just a little cell.
Totally. Yeah.
And I love that so many people would think that the first 12 weeks, like, you're in the clear after that, and you've shown us so much that unfathomable shit happens, and it can happen in the third trimester. So can we talk about that 12-week wait, and why do we do that?
Yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? Because certainly I think the 12-week rule sort of stems from this idea of that, like, you can't talk about something so personal and make other people feel uncomfortable. And because, I guess the likelihood of miscarriage is sort of raised within that 12-week window. So you will often hear comments from like medical professionals saying, don't get too excited, but if you have seen the positive test, of course, your brain goes, oh my God, this is a life, this is my future. So it's very hard to kind of separate yourself from this idea that, there's a growing, and I guess that's what I wanted to explore as well, is that I completely understand and respect the medical profession, is that, this is a group of cells, this is a fetus, this is when this, like, it's broken down, but like what you were saying, it is your baby. So I really wanted to explore that, and I wanted women to see the other side of the perspective as well from the doctors, because often, because miscarriage is so common, they're inundated with women coming in saying, I've lost my baby, and they're very pragmatic about it. But I believe by us voicing what we're going through, there can be some like systematic change within the medical system about how they actually use their language, so the emotional impacts don't affect you so much. And I guess the 12-week rule, going back to your previous, because I waffle on, sorry, but the going back to your previous question, is that I think ultimately, if we can start to, and I don't, by no means, I mean like go on Facebook or social media and say, hey, I'm pregnant at one. You don't have to, but certainly telling those people that are close to you that if anything was to happen, God forbid, you have a support system around you. And the likelihood of something happening after 12 weeks is also so I don't quite understand it, because I've spoken to women who've lost babies at 14 weeks, at 20 weeks, and it doesn't, and that was one of the bigger conversations, was the term of the gestation shouldn't determine the validity of the loss. It shouldn't be, well, you lost it, at least it was only 2 weeks rather than 25 weeks. Well, no, because you're still experiencing those very real feelings. So it's confusing and it's hard, but I think the more women talk about early pregnancy, because early pregnancy is full on and intense, and your body changes so much within like the first week, you need that support system. So I'm a true believer in telling those people that you love if you're pregnant, because
and
I
feel like for myself, because I'm been going through IVF, and my journey is completely different to most. Like, whereas a lot of people are invested in where I'm at because I've been quite vocal about it on social media and on this podcast, and like my friends and family, most of the time they're like, oh, you're in another cycle, you've got this. So people are following up, like, did it work? Did it work? If so for me, it's very much like, I don't know how I could. I mean, I'm very open with telling people. I probably wouldn't announce on social media and, like you said, all that before 12 weeks, which is, again, I don't even know why and where that number sort of comes from. But I tell all my close friends and family, and like for me, I've been always so excited. But I guess that leads like into what I wanted to speak to you about. Like for myself, like I've had 2 miscarriages. We've been trying for nearly 2 years now, and like for me, the thought of pregnancy is just like, it terrifies me. Like I don't even. I know it sounds really dark, but I'm like, I can't foresee it. Like I know I will have a baby one day, but like I've had so much trauma and so much loss that I'm like, what does that even feel like? And like, how do I, like, what do you like? How did you, after your miscarriages, like, are there any like ways or any things that kept you mentally sane and to be able to kind of give yourself strength to kind of push through and believe that it will happen?
Yeah. Look, it's every journey is like it's your own experience. So I guess with my first miscarriage, because I had never experienced loss before, we had only started trying. So my journey was a little bit different because I didn't go through IVF. So, it was one of those things like we, wanted to have a baby. I felt pregnant straight away and then lost that baby. And then I fell pregnant with Echo, my daughter, which sort of added like a Band-Aid effect.
Mm-hmm.
It was only when I had my second and third miscarriage that all of a sudden it was like those emotions that I kind of buried with my first. And like you said, it's quite traumatic. A miscarriage is quite traumatic, not only physically, where you're losing a lot of blood, and then like you were saying before, that like you're terrified to go to the bathroom and all those type of things. But the emotional impact is so intense because you just feel like a failure, like it's all your fault, what are you doing wrong? And so the things that helped me are definitely talking about it.
Yeah.
But I didn't speak to my husband about it. I had a very good friend of mine who had been through loss, and it was like just like verbal diarrhea just coming out of me, and I was so angry and I was frustrated. And funnily enough, and I don't know if you're feeling this while you're going through what you're going through, but I found when I fell pregnant again, the pressure from my family, like, is everything okay? Like, then I felt like, oh God, like, if this doesn't happen now, I've got this added pressure because everyone's so invested. So it's all very multi-layered, but certainly if you can kind of separate yourself from what you're going through and be like, okay, these are the feelings that I'm feeling because of my experience.
Mm-hmm.
So, and just kind of break that down and speak to, there's a support group called the Pink Elephant Support Network, which are doing amazing things. And I didn't have any of that when I was going through my loss, but I found when I was on those, what do you call them? Chat group things.
Yeah. On Facebook.
Showing my age. Like, like that really helped. And also sitting in the knowledge that it is nothing that you can control. So as soon as I let go of this idea that I can control this outcome, you actually can't.
Yeah.
It's like a biophysical something in your body that it's not your fault. If you had the power, like I said, if I had the power where I could control this situation, this wouldn't happen, but I can't. So it's just letting go of those ideals that you put in your head for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I fully... Sorry, go Elle.
Yeah. No, it's just literally such a miracle to fall pregnant naturally. Like, just, but something else that really stuck out to me in your documentary is that you seem to fall pregnant quite quickly each time. Do you think there's a misconception around people who are fertile maybe won't have issues and they'll like carry through to full term?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It was one of those things. And that was also that weird terminology out here. Was like, well, at least you can fall pregnant.
Yeah.
And it was like this comparison thing. And And you just sort of, yeah, you sort of think, oh, that's not what I'm getting at. Like, this still hurts. But yeah, I definitely, I did. I fell pregnant really quickly. I have 3 kids now. Each, like, I fell pregnant, but not to say that, the loss of the babies that happened didn't mean anything, like it was just, but I do, yeah, I think there's this idea that, and especially, and I think that's why as we get older and the longer we keep trying, especially some of the older women I spoke to, or women who have gone through multiple rounds of IVF, and I have a few friends who are going through that now, are just blaming themselves so much because they think it's something from them, like, why can't I just be like you and just fall pregnant, like it's this weird,
the self-blame.
Yeah, and you're not guaranteed anything. That's the problem. You're just not guaranteed anything.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've done IVF 3 times. I've done 2 rounds of IVF and one IUI round, and like none of them have been successful. Like, and I can barely even get eggs out to to make it to the even blastocyst, like day 5. I fully, it's just like the whole thing is just like far out. How am I actually even? How am I even doing this? It's crazy because you get to the other end and you're like, this is a blur. Did that even happen? Like, how did, like, it's
you must be exhausted too. Like the emotional,
like,
hormonal
honestly,
toll is,
And like, because I've been over in America, like I've been kind of holding off because I wanted to go back to be with my doctor, and like, we've been trying naturally and obviously, and trying fucking hard. I'm like, I can't have any more sex. I'll break.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why is this not working? Like, why can everyone else do it but not me? And that's kind of like I feel like people, not that people shouldn't take it for granted, but like, it's like Elodie said, it's like a miracle. Like, I don't know, for me anyway, that's how I feel like even when I do fall pregnant, I'm not like, at what point after your miscarriages do you feel like you can celebrate this life? Like, I don't know. I'm going to be petrified the whole way through until that baby's in my arms.
Yeah. And I think everything you're feeling is totally normal. When I was pregnant with Oshin, I was anxious the whole time, even to the point where after his birth, I had like severe anxiety, and I had problems connecting with him, and I'm open about that in the doco, that I was like, I'm not connecting with this baby. Like, it's really weird compared to my first birth. But yeah, it is hard. And again, because I haven't gone through IVF, but I know that women who have gone through it, there must be just so much frustration there, because and that's what I was sort of getting to, my point of like, this idea that if you could control the outcome, like, why is my body not doing what it's supposed to do?
Mm-hmm.
And, I think the hardest thing for especially the women that were going through IVF in the film and what they had to go through, we had someone who had an egg donor from her sister, and then spontaneously fall pregnant with her second on her own years later, with no help at all with anything. And then we had someone who did multiple rounds of IVF and said, no, I'm not doing it anymore. Then we had another one who had multiple rounds of IVF and fell pregnant with twins. And then, so you just don't know how it's going to, you don't know the outcome. The hardest thing, and I guess, my only advice to you while you're going through this, is try not to, and it's so, because so many people said it to me when I had 2 losses, and then I was like, I'm done, and then bang, I fell pregnant, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, what is happening right now? So it's it is just really try not to get into that like negative self-talk, because the joy of the actual experience will get ripped away, and it becomes like a chore and something that, is not, sex is supposed to be fun as well, but it's hard. It's, this is tough. This is tough. The world is tough. And, unfortunately, like women, with pregnancy and fertility and this, we carry a lot of shit with us to go through that,
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's like baggage that you don't even have, like, it's like, it's like this emotional baggage that you carry constantly, but you haven't even got what you want in the, and it's just, it's, what I mean?
And that's
I'm just like, wow.
It ties back to back to our first point, it's kind of what makes you a woman. It's kind of like, bang, you come out that other side and you will learn so much about yourself. But until you kind of start walking that road, you have no idea. And then you start walking that road, and then it's like, wow, hello.
Rummy's
Is that
here.
Rummy?
To say
Rummy's
hello.
our executive producer.
Producer. One of my favorite parts, and it really resonated with me in a completely different way, was you normalizing not connecting with the baby while it's in your belly for fear of what may happen. I am around so many people that are always like, how's Bub cooking along? Are you talking to it lots? What do you think it is, a boy or a girl? Rah, rah, rah. And I think at the start I was super connected and I was like, oh yeah, rah, rah. But now I'm in my third trimester and I'm still so scared something about to go wrong. And I think from seeing what Chloe's gone through and after watching your documentary and having lost my partner, I'm so scared of losing another person. And I go to a scan and I'm literally surprised when there's a heartbeat. I'm like, oh fuck, thank God, like I can breathe again until the next one. And I just think, I'm sure there is so many people in this exact same boat for whatever reason, or just not maybe spiritual or intuitive, and they're not connecting to their bubs. But there's so many people around. Like, I'm seriously finding so many of my friends are like, how's Bubba going? What are you really connecting?
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I'm not.
Yeah, but it's funny, is it? Because it's all coming from a loving place. But I think what you kind of, what you've gone through as well is significant trauma. It's an experience that, like, so you have to give yourself permission to kind of be and not have to. And again, like, especially with connecting with pregnancy, there is a lot of pressure out there because you see these beautiful baby bumps, and you can do the beautiful baby bump picture, but still have moments where you're like,
Yep.
I hope this is the right thing.
Yeah.
I'm terrified, and that's totally normal too. And I think owning up to that is really strong, and even, like I said, I'm really interested in exploring, the fourth trimester now, which is after the birth, because having a new baby into the world is so crazy. And my middle one, which is Oshin, the son that I have during the filming.
Yeah.
Like I said, for months I was there just going, I still feel really rocky about this. Why? And I couldn't work it out. And I never spoke to anyone about it. Or I mean, I'm a really pragmatic person, and I can kind of dissect my feelings really rationally. But I knew that I was like, okay, this is coming from the fact that I went through A, B, and C, and I was feeling this, and I did this, and then I was shooting a movie through it, and then I saw a woman who lost her twins while I was 37 weeks pregnant. Like, so all of a sudden that broke it down for me, and then it became, so I think you got to be a little bit easier on yourself and not, just be okay. It's all right. Like, what you're going through is amazing and beautiful. Yes, we understand that, but it's also, it's, like you said, fucking terrifying. And like, you want to get it right. You want to do the right thing, and it's totally normal.
I guess it's just that protective mechanism that our bodies just happens. But
Absolutely.
Yeah, we can't help but feel so guilty about it.
Yeah, but the best thing you just did then, was just saying that out loud and going like, I don't know, like, I know, and you can kind of see from both perspectives, because you know that your friends are being loving and caring, and you want to play along and be like, yeah, and then you're gonna have those moments where you're like, I wonder. Yeah, totally.
I seriously just make shit up to them. I'm like, yeah, all's going well. I reckon this week it's a boy. And then like, I just make shit up because they're like, what are you thinking? And I'm like,
oh yeah,
I don't know.
My phone with my pregnancy photos are full of all these like glorious pregnancy photos, and I'm like, you're such a liar, Tanya. Like, in that photo, you felt so crappy. So that was just.
I'm actually loving having a bump, and I'm really enjoying that. Like, I'm really enjoying my body. I honestly think I'll miss the bump. But in terms of what's inside, I'm like, is there really someone in there? I'm scared. I'm not sure if there is. Like, it's so weird.
Wild, but it's look, you'll go on your own journey with it. And some women have their baby and there's an immediate connection. I had that with Echo, where I was like, and I mean obsessed. Like I could not take my eyes off her. And then my
Yeah.
son comes along, and I didn't have that. And then my third child, which was a complete, surprise blessing. Like I'm like
Yeah.
obsessed with him. So it's like this up and down roller coaster. And I think, since you go through those experiences, it's just it's sort of creates like the makeup of how you will sort of react to things
Yeah.
as you grow into the woman you want to be.
Yeah. It's like unbelievable, but I think once it's in my arms, I'll be like, oh my god, there you are.
Oh, totally. And it's wild.
Yeah,
I can't
it's
even
still
describe
real.
it. Yeah.
But I think Chloe might be pleasantly surprised because I feel like you connect really well to your bubbas when they're in there, and even to your baby spirits. And I think
my child is going to be smothered when
no,
that
I mean
baby.
like when it's in the womb.
Oh, I know. Well,
I
both,
think you'll still
both. I connect to it and it's not even here. I'm like the other day, I'm like talking to
Yeah.
the sky, just going, what is wrong? Like, why won't you come down? We're ready for you. This is the time. And I literally, I'm going batshit fucking crazy talking to nothing. I love the idea of it, but I'm like, nothing that I've manifested like about this for the last 2 years has happened. It will happen, but like, anyway. I want to.
What you can do is hard. It's hard.
I know.
Like,
yeah.
so
I guess I just like to not underestimate what, and like I think that was the best thing for me about your documentary. Like I learned stuff that I was like, oh, actually, I do feel like that. I feel that, and like it's something that you're just not like pushing under the rug, and it makes you kind of realize, that you're allowed to feel like that, and that's I think the most important taking that I got out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I wanted to speak to you, and if you're comfortable speaking about your own personal miscarriages and how I know, like some people, like I said, like there's 1 in 4. I just keep on getting the magic stick, and I just had it twice. But when you found out that you were miscarrying, or like when how did you decide? Like, did you have DNCs, or did you decide to like let the baby pass naturally, or like, because I know there's a lot of friends that I have had that want to do it naturally, and it takes weeks and months, and it's like an awful experience. Whereas for me, as soon as I was told both times, I was like, book me in tomorrow. I need it to be like, I need the baby to be out. I need to just like, I want to move on, and that needs to, that was like the quicker it was done for me, but how did you kind of navigate that?
Well, with my first loss, which I think was one of the ones that stung and shocked me the most, was it was a spontaneous miscarriage, and it happened really fast. So I woke up in the morning, miscarried, and basically lost the baby. I say the baby lost the fetus or whatever, but within 2 days. Because as soon as I went to the doctors to get a second ultrasound, there was nothing. It was done. It was like, and it was so crazy because immediately all the symptoms that you sort of feel with early pregnancy disappeared as well. The second loss, which I was deeply connected to as well, like again, sort of dreaming up this big idea of the universe, and I wanted to wait. I don't know why. Maybe it was just weird. For me, I wanted to hang on to this idea. I don't know. It was looking in hindsight now, looking back, it might have been a little bit of just, I don't know, like self-torture. Like it was just like I just wanted to hold on. And I bled and bled and bled and bled and bled for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks on end. And finally went back to the doctors, and I was like, I think something's wrong. And I was basically forced into a D&C because I had tissue left over. And it's funny, I have an image of the picture, and it's still the shape of the fetus. So like he showed me, he's like, this is what we're cutting out. And I just remember being like, it's
the worst. The worst feeling when you get pushed in there with something in you, and then you come out and you just feel like empty. You're like, okay. Now
totally empty, and like and then also like I was just like I just had to go through, you know, a day, so like it just felt so medical and yucky, and it just sort of compounded on this idea that like, oh, something, I'm broken, you know, like here I am at the doctor's again, I'm all broken.
Yeah.
And then the third time around was another spontaneous one, and it was sort of similar to the first. I bled a little bit longer, but the cramping was much more intense. So it kind of, I don't know whether, because I had waited, I got the positive test, and it was like literally that day, and the cramps were just so intense. It was like bang, bang, bang. So I most of mine were like two of mine were natural miscarriage. One was a DNC that I was sort of forced into.
Right.
So yeah.
So how many weeks were you along for all three of yours?
My first, I was about 7 weeks. My second, 12. My third, and when I say 12 weeks, I went in for a scan first, and they were like, oh, something doesn't look quite right, but come back in a few weeks. So I was
Oh,
like still very
worst.
hopeful that everything was okay. Yeah, but the weird thing was, and I guess my instincts were all skew-iffed, because I was like, no, this pregnancy's fine. I remember feeling like this pregnancy's fine, and then I went in there, and then they told me that, and then I knew, I was like, this pregnancy's not fine. And then she said, come back in a few weeks, and I knew as I was laying there, I was like,
And isn't that torture? You're like,
yeah,
come back in a few weeks. Like that was actually, now that I think of it, the first miscarriage that I had, I went in and I was like, it was a dating scan and it was there, but it was like there was no there was no heartbeat, but they're like, oh, maybe come back in 2 weeks. And I'm like, I knew instantly, and there was nothing. Like I just knew I had it in my gut, and I was going through that through the thick of COVID as well. So like Paul wasn't able to be in any of the like appointments. Paul and I guess that kind of leads me into the conversation about the sonographers, and you know how I remember when I went back the second time for them to like basically confirm, and she wouldn't put the screen on. She wouldn't tell me anything. I remember laying there with like no pants on, literally shaking to my core. And I'm like, what, like, can you tell me? And she's like, I can't really tell you anything. Like, so she didn't tell me anything the first time. And she basically just like shooed me out. And I guess it was up to my doctor to break the news to me. But the second time around, I saw a heartbeat, and that was like the first time I'd seen a heartbeat. It was so, my mom and I, because Paul was actually already away working, so I did it by myself again. And my mom and I just like burst into tears when we heard the heartbeat. And then literally a week later, I just, like you said, I started bleeding, and everyone's like, it's fine. It's like, can be normal. And you just know, I was like, this is not normal. I am losing so much blood. I was like almost like being all dramatic. I'm like, I need a blood transfusion. I'm losing so much blood. And they're going, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine. And then sure enough, I forced them into, because my levels were still rising, like doubling like every single day. So I was like kind of holding on to that little bit. And then I was like, no, I need another ultrasound. They're like, well, it was only just yesterday that you had it and it's still rising. And I'm like, no, let me have a friggin' ultrasound. And then I had the ultrasound, and basically this lady was actually really kind. She was such a beautiful woman, and she basically, you see it and you know what the little flicker, like I saw the heartbeat only the day before, so I was like looking for that little flicker. I'm like, please, please, please. And then when I didn't see it, I knew straight away. And she was just like, oh, I'm really sorry. Like, unfortunately, you've had a miscarriage. And then I feel like it's just dismissed, and you're like, okay, like bye, like sort of thing. And that's sort of it. And we've actually had a lot of women that have written into us that are sonographers, and they're like, how can we better help, or what can we say to help you women that are going through this? I mean, for a start, like I said, the first woman that I had was absolutely the coldest human I've ever met in my life, and I'll never go back to that radiology place again. But yeah, like what in your experience, like do you think that there's not really much they can say, but like have you got any like do you want to say anything about that?
Well, I think, like you said, to humanize the experience a little bit more. I understand, and this was when I was talking to the doctors as well. I understand that they have a very medically necessary job to do. But like you said, when you're in there and, you see a heartbeat and then you don't see a heartbeat anymore. There's nothing quite like that
Oh,
experience. And it's funny that you said, because I actually just had a sonographer reach out to me lately, wanting to have a chat about how she can sort of, she's volunteering with the Sonographers Association, and how she can sort of open up this topic about how to broach difficult news, because
yeah.
they're not doctors,
Yeah.
essentially. But I think, you know, I certainly believe in the power of language and empathy. And I think, like you said, there is this idea that it's very dismissed. My
Mm.
first loss, I also had a really cold sonographer who was like, I don't see anything here. Go home and take a
It's
Panadol.
awful. It's like, are you
Yeah,
serious? I've just lost
yeah,
my world, and you're telling me to go
yeah,
home and take a
exactly.
fucking Panadol? Like, come on.
Exactly. It's really painful, and it's so I really believe a little bit of sensibility is all that's needed. And I had, in my second loss, I had a really good experience, and I can only sort of use examples, but the sonographer, who was the same sonographer, said come back in 2 weeks, and she was like, I'm so sorry. There's no heartbeat. And she held my hand and she said, I'll let you, she's like, take as much time as you want, don't worry. And she was like, I'm just so sorry. And even just that little bit of validation
Yeah.
and that little bit of just gentle kindness was enough to kind of, you know, I don't have the answers. But, you know,
Yeah.
I remember when I first made this, I was like, I wonder if there was a way, and I didn't realize actually the big undertaking of it, because I started working on it with another woman, and you have to actually get it approved, but just like a pamphlet or something that you could
Yeah.
be given as soon as you walk out of that sonographer's office, like,
Mm.
here's what you might experience, and here's who you can talk to if you need it, you know, rather than having to go
100%.
home and Google everything. So, yeah.
Literally. The sonographers need to know to tell them to watch the Mum documentary.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, we had an amazing sonographer on there who was like,
Mm.
you know, delivering. She says as well, like, telling someone bad news is very difficult. There has to be a certain a bit of education around it, you know, because um, I don't think you can go in blind. You can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just
I
Far
don't
being a
know.
out.
human, as you say, and just having that, like, a tiny bit of nurturing. But yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and and believe me, I understand you have to emotionally disconnect because it's your job,
Yeah.
but I do think there's a certain aspect that needs to be like, you know, simply saying go home and take a Panadol or you've had a miscarriage is kind of not enough. Like, you need to
Yeah.
soften that.
Yeah.
It really would be
100%.
the hardest job. I'd be in tears if I was. I would never be able to do that job because I'd just like be with the patient just on the bed fucking crying.
Yeah, yeah. I think you've certainly got to have be a little bit tougher, I think, with that type of work for sure.
I wanted to ask you, Tahina, what better way we can actually support, well, you can support, well, friends and family can support someone going through a miscarriage.
Okay. Um, I guess the best way for friends and family, because you're not physically experiencing
Mm-hmm.
loss, is you would treat it as if anyone else was to lose someone, in the sense of like being there, showing your support, and acknowledging that whatever they're feeling, whether it be, you know, they're completely heartbroken, grieving for weeks on end, is all normal, and you're there and you understand and acknowledge that they're grief. And I think that they're grieving. And I think that's a big problem with miscarriage, is that it's a disenfranchised grief. And no
Yeah.
one sees it as a real grief unless you have a physical baby that you like, that's the shape of a baby, and you know, you've
Yeah.
lost that baby. So I think certainly for women, friends and family, if they can acknowledge the loss and just be there and show support, anything that belittles the loss, like, well, at least you can fall pregnant, or at
Mm.
least it was 3
Yeah.
weeks, or at least this, or at least that, it doesn't help. It just helps to sort of, you know, be there and really,
And
truly be sorry for what they are experiencing.
I think that you're so right when you say empathy. Like, and I've recently, like, I've got 15 friends that are pregnant, and like you said, going through a miscarriage is you're actually losing it. Just like treat it like losing anyone else. Like, I know, like,
Mm.
it's not a physical being in your hands, but it's still something that you're growing inside. And I sadly have recently lost a really good friend over this, because she was pregnant. and announced to myself that she was pregnant, but had zero, didn't touch on what, like, I was going through a miscarriage at the time. And she literally just told me that she was pregnant, one of my really good friends. And it was like, there was absolutely no empathy or any even touched on what I was going through. It was not like, I'm so sorry what you're going through. This is the hardest thing in the world to tell you, but I'm pregnant, sort of thing. There was nothing. And it's heartbreaking. And it's very hard to tell someone. Like I said, I've got 15 friends that are pregnant, and every single one of them have told me different. But it's really, really, like, for me, I feel like the longer it's gone for me to not be falling pregnant, like it's coming up to 2 years. It's weird because it's the more triggering things are becoming for me. Like, I dead set saw someone at the airport the other day, and Paul's like, oh my God, I can't wait till that's us, like little baby on the front. And I just looked at him and I just had a full meltdown, bawled my eyes out. And I'm just like, it is like, the baby shower thing, like, especially when you've gone through so much loss, it is so difficult. And like, it's not like you're not happy for other people that are pregnant. It's just like, it's something that you can't explain until you've actually kind of gone through that. And like, I like you said, I think for me personally, it's just empathy. Like, feel for that person, even if you can't exactly understand what they're going through. Just show that you make an effort to reach out and ask them, "Are you okay? Like, I'm here for you." Sort of thing. So I it's a real tough one, and there's not really any answer, like an easy answer, but it's just like a bit of kindness, a bit of empathy. Like, it goes such a long way.
It does, and I think that's all. I think that a bottom line is, because there is no written rule, but certainly I think just being a better human can start.
Yeah.
And all those feelings. I know when you see pregnant women or women who have no problems in their pregnancy, or just in general anyway, is just that idea where it hurts so much when you want something so bad and someone else has got it. And it's just trying to, and you're allowed to feel all the things, and just remember that it's okay to feel all those things. And I don't know, I remember seeing like a couple of my friends fall pregnant so easily and have these great magical births and have no complications, and I'd just be so envious.
Yeah.
And I just sort of went, okay, I'm feeling that. I'm not blaming them. I'm not sort of belittling their journey or their experience.
And you're so happy for them, but you're heartbroken for yourself. You're like, fuck, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah, and that's okay. And I think that's human nature. And I just think, unfortunately, there's a lot more people out there who kind of dismiss those feelings, and whether it's yourself or someone close to you who clearly is not a great friend.
Yeah, seriously. But I guess, like, that, if all of our listeners, if you haven't watched the documentary, like, we've obviously touched on a lot of things in this chat, but like, please, even if you don't know someone that's gone through a miscarriage, if you haven't gone through one yourself, there's so much in that it will help you better understand it. And for when you will at some point in your life know somebody who goes through a miscarriage. It's 1 in 4. That's the statistic. And you will need, from watching the documentary, you will get tools to better help your friends and family going through it. Because, like I said, I learned a lot, and I had been through one. There was stuff that I didn't even know about myself after watching it. So yeah, thank you so much. Like, we like, Elodie and I both adore you, and we're really grateful that you came on the podcast. And you were actually one of our first guests that we've interviewed, so it's really exciting. And
you're actually our second real guest, actually third.
Oh, that's awesome.
I love that you said real guest.
Fisher wasn't a real guest.
No.
No, you girls are great, and I've been following a little bit of what you guys have gone through as well, and I think you're really amazing women, so good job, and keep helping others. It's really amazing.
Thank you so much. Well, you've helped millions of people going through this around the world, and creating another really, really necessary resource for them to feel supported and heard. So
where can people watch if they want to go and watch the documentary?
Yeah, so Mum, or Misunderstandings of Miscarriage, is still available on Stan in Australia.
Yeah.
If you follow at Mum Documentary, we'll slowly be announcing all our international countries soon. And yeah, we're starting to branch out now, and thankfully we have a great support team who are getting the film out to the rest of the world in the right places. And so yeah, follow at Mum Documentary or mumdocumentary.com.
Yay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank
This
you
has been
so
such a great
much.
chat.
Awesome.
Yay.
Thanks, ladies.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.